Hello everyone and welcome to my mid-season rankings for the 2024 NHL Draft. My name is Hattie, I'm a scout for Dobber Prospects, and I'm excited to bring you this two-part series where I break down my top 32 for the 2024 NHL Draft. I'll also be including some honorable mentions in there. I've got 6 of them to break down for you at the start of this video. But yeah, we'll be working our way up to number 1 through a two-part series, and I'll be kind of breaking down the playing styles of these players, why I have them ranked where they are, why I think they could be higher. I'll also be showing you lots of tape for these players, so be sure to stick around. If you like this type of content, or if your team sucks and you just want to keep up with what's going on in the draft and which prospects are exciting, leave a like on the video, make sure to subscribe as well, and leave me a comment letting you know what you think of my rankings. You know, there might be some players in here that you don't agree with me. I'm excited to hear about it. I love to discuss these types of things. I'm really active in the comments, so leave them down below. So let's start off right away with the 6 honorable mentions on my list. And we're going to start off with a right-handed defenseman out of the USNTDP, and it's EJ Emery. He's a decent-sized, defensive specialist. The thing that really stands out to me in his game is the rush defense. He is so good at closing gaps. He's really good at, separating opponents from pucks in transition, closing those gaps quickly and efficiently without necessarily taking himself out of plays or, getting too aggressive and causing, 2-on-1s against. He's a really responsible, really smart rush defender that really goes through his skating and his really good stick. I think those are the two elements that will continue to be strengths as he goes up. He doesn't have the highest offensive upside, but he's smart, he's a fluid skater, and he's got great defensive stick work. Moving on to our other honorable mentions, Ryder Ritchie of the Prince Albert Raiders. He's a winger, average sized, but what really stands out in his game is the creativity and the skill. I think he's a really skilled player in terms of his shooting, his passing, and his stick handling. But for me, the issue with Ryder Ritchie and the reason why he's not in my first round is that he lacks fundamentals. If you watch him a bit closer, you notice that pucks bounce off of his stick when he's trying to corral them, collect a pass or retrieve a puck. And he lacks a lot of inside drive. He's a player that kind of sticks to the perimeter at times, which can hold him back offensively. Working on those two things, you could unlock some top 6 potential, but those are some big issues usually with prospects. Another honorable mention on my list is Jet Luchenko, a center out of the Guelph Storm. He's really mature for an August birthday, and that really stands out in this game. He's really defensively engaged. His positioning is excellent. He's got great habits on and off the puck. On top of that, he's tested really, really well at the CHL Combine. He ranked top 5 in almost every physical category, reactions, skating speed, all that stuff. The offensive upside is a question mark, but I think overall there's enough there to make him a decent first rounder. I think teams will be tempted to pick him in the first round, and I definitely get it. Another one is Emil Hemming, a Finnish right winger out of TPS. He's a big kind of power forward, and this is the first one where I'm already seeing some eyebrows getting raised. I have more questions with Hemming's game than I have answers. Seems like a unanimous first rounder. I'm just not sure. I love the shot, the offensive zone timing when it comes to finding pockets to shoot from, and I love the hints of a power game that he has, but for me, he disengages from games too often. He doesn't really create his own chances as much either, and I feel like he needs to develop some consistency and better habits in all 3 zones. Another honorable mention on my list would be Raoul Boilard, and he is my top-ranked QMJHL prospect. He's a center out of the Bécomo Drakkar. He's a face-off wizard with really mature habits. He's really smart, a decent skater. I'd say he's not as creative as other prospects, that are ranked above him, but he's still a very fun player and a player who's going to give you, what you're getting out of Raoul Boilard, which is really interesting. And my last honorable mention would be Michael Hage, a center out of the Chicago Steel in the USHL. I feel like he was trying too hard to be a Swiss Army knife at the beginning of the season. He was trying too hard to occupy many roles. He's lost some of his supporting cast. He's not playing with Macklin Celebrini anymore, so that'll affect the way you play, but at his core, he's a skilled player. He's a really smart, really good skater. He's got great playmaking ability. He's got a good shot. I think he's got the tools to climb up these rankings, and at one point he was in my first round, but I like the guys ahead of him way too much. So let's get right into it with our top 32. Our first ranked player, the 32nd overall pick in my rankings, would be Sacha Boisvert, a center of the Muskegon Lumberjack, my highest ranked Quebec-born player. He's a goal-scoring center, to describe him bluntly. He loves a one-timer from the half wall in the power play, can shoot and stride really well. I love his ability to release shots in motion. It's really good. The issue with Boisvert is he's not the best skater, and that limits him really a lot in transition. He doesn't get involved in transitions all that much. Most of the time, if he turns over a puck in the defensive zone, which he does really well, he's got a good base of defensive tool, he passes it and then moves into space. He reminds me a bit of Joshua Roy in that element. Just kind of lacks that pop to be able to kind of carry pucks through lanes and make plays at high speeds. But I love the foundation of defensive awareness combined with the ability to score from basically anywhere. Moving on to 31st in my rankings, we're going to go to John Mustard, a left winger out of the Waterloo Blackhawks in the USHL. He kind of reminds me of Boisvert a bit, but it's basically he's a much better skater than Boisvert, and he's just as good of a scorer. I'd say he's less versatile in his goal-scoring ability than Sacha Boisvert. Boisvert has a wider arsenal of shots. He can score from the backhand, he can shoot from distance, he can one-time, all that stuff. But Mustard's really good at one thing, and it's his curl and drag wrist shot. I love it. It's a great element of his game, and he uses it liberally and generously, and uses it really intelligently as well. He finds little pockets to use that curl and drag wrister from, and what I really like as well is with Mustard, you have a bit of a hint of a power game. He's able to kind of drop the shoulder, drive through checks, drive to the net. He protects pucks really well. There's hints of a power game, but it's still a very raw game that he has. What I really like, though, is that the habits usually come with time when it comes to prospects. The tools, though, the tools usually are there from a young age, and Mustard definitely has the tools to become a really interesting power forward. Moving on to 30th overall, we've got Tanner Howe of the Regina Pats in the WHL. If you like Brendan Gallagher, you will love Tanner Howe. He's an undersized, hard-working forward with really great instincts. He's playing center right now with the Regina Pats, but it's mostly by default, honestly. I think he projects better as a winger. He's one of only 2 draft eligibles in the entire CHL to be captaining his team. You watch him play, and you can't help but fall in love with the engagement, the intensity, but also the offensive instincts. Like, he'll pop up in spots unmarked, and just the puck will land on his stick. It feels like he reads the play really well as well. He was playing with Connor Bedard last year in Regina. This year, he's on an island, and he's producing really well. He doesn't have the highest upside, in my opinion, but he's still worth a bet, especially with the work rate and the instincts that he has. Those are bound to translate really well. At 29th overall now, we have Harrison Brunicki, a right-handed defenseman out of the Kamloops Blazers in the WHL. To describe him in one word, he is dependable. He's a really good rush defenseman. He's physical as well. He's not afraid from physical contact. He's also a really great skater, and that combines to make him really hard to get around in transition, but it also makes him pretty reliable in zone. But what separates him from other defensemen in his mold in his draft, and trust me, there are a lot of them, is that Harrison Brunicki's constantly trying stuff offensively. He's trusting his hands more and more. He's getting to scoring areas, using dekes and smart moves, and he's kind of exploring his ability to create with the puck. He's also activating a lot off the rush. It blends well with his ability to make strong breakout passes. So he's really good at passing the puck up the ice and then following his pass into the offensive zone and creating. He's still very raw, but he's learning on the fly, which is not something you can say for other defensemen in this mold. And fun fact, he's going to be the first South African citizen to ever get drafted in the NHL. Moving on to number 28 in my rankings, we have Aron Kiviharju, a left-handed defenseman out of HIFK and the Finnish Liga. He's been injured since September. I haven't had any viewings of his since then, but even back then, there were issues with his game. He's an amazing breakout passer. He's so intelligent. Those are the big standouts in his game. The intelligence, the breakout passing, the mobility. And on top of all that, he's been playing pro since he was 16. But the issues are he doesn't have the strength of other players, and on top of that, he lacks pro habits. He's often kind of throwing pucks up areas where there are 3-4 opponents instead of kind of taking a moment, reading the play, and collecting his thoughts and making the right play. I think his lecture of play isn't as good as ability to make a crisp, tape-to-tape pass, and a lot of the times he's trying riskier plays instead of defaulting to simple, easy, effective plays. He reminds me a bit too much of Eric Brandstrom to take a shot at him higher than this. So it's going to be a bit difficult for him to climb up. He's probably going to be back from injury fairly soon, but still, unless something drastic changes on that end, I still have my reservations with Kiviharju. Moving on to number 27, we have Beckett Seneca, a right winger out of the Oshawa Generals. He is so fun. He's creative. He's skilled. He's also amazing defensively, and he can handle physical pressure fairly well. But the thing is, it's so obvious that Beckett Seneca grew like 6 inches in the past year because he's really wonky and uncoordinated, especially when it comes to collecting pucks in his feet. It's an issue that comes up a lot in my viewings of him. If you're drafting him, you're betting on that getting better, on him getting used to his frame and using it better. I really like the tools and the decision-making, but overall, there's risk in his projection. Moving on to number 26 in my rankings. That's Adam Juracek, the right-handed defenseman out of HC Pilsen in the Czech Extraliga. He's David Juracek's brother, if you recognize the last name. He got injured in his first game of the World Juniors, and it was a bad injury. But he's another prospect whose problems started before getting injured. He's physical, he's strong, he's got good mobility, he flashes some interesting offensive tools, but the main problem with Juracek is that he lacks composure. He throws pucks up the ice too often. He doesn't really know what to do once he secures pucks along the boards. He's really toolsy, and that makes him really interesting, but he's a lot further from being NHL ready than other defensemen in this draft. Which brings us to number 25. Another right-handed defenseman is going to be Dominik Bedinka. I really don't see him being talked about enough. He reminds me so much of kind of like a beta version of David Reinbacher. He's really big, he's really mobile, he's extremely smart, and he's got an active defensive stick. I'd say the main issue with him is that he's much less composed than David Reinbacher, for example, even though they're kind of in the same mold. What's really fun with him, though, is that he's exploring his game, he's figuring out what works and what doesn't with the puck, but he can get too aggressive. He can throw himself into situations that he can't recover from, but I'd say it's gotten better as the season's gone on, as he's been playing more and more minutes in the SHL. That's something that stood out for me in recent viewings. Moving on to number 24 in my rankings, we're going to look at Luke Misa, a center out of the Mississauga Steelheads in the OHL. And Luke Misa is one of the paciest prospects in the entire draft. His speed in transition is killer. He's able to get around opponents super easily with his speed, but he's also able to cut inside contact and kind of wriggle through two opponents. I really like that part of his game. On top of that, he's a really good playmaker, and I really like his defensive game too. So he's got that going for him, and that foundation of defensive tools and that playmaking ability I think combines really well in his game. Now, he's not the strongest or the biggest player, but his game is really translatable, and he has some really interesting tools. At 23, we've got Miguel Marquez, a right winger out of the Lethbridge Hurricanes in the WHL. To kind of summarize him, he's a skillful goal-scoring forward. I love how he blends his skills. I think that's a really important part of, being able to develop into an NHLer is learning how to use your tools in combination. It's what we call the toolkit. So he can go from stick handling to shooting really smoothly. He's able to make passes inside of dekes, and on top of all that, and on top of the fact that his offensive tools blend so well, there is no hesitation with him offensively. The issue with Miguel Marquez is that he's not necessarily the most engaged defensive player. But I think he more than makes up for it with well-rounded offensive tools and constant support in transition. At 22nd overall, we've got Tarek Parasak, a right winger out of the Prince George Cougars in the WHL. This is a really good team that he's playing on, but when you watch Tarek Parasak, you can see that he's one of the smartest prospects in the entire draft, and for me, the smartest player on this team on a regular basis. He constantly beats defenders to the right spots in the offensive zone, which makes no sense because he's a really bad skater. Like, his skating is a bona fide weakness in his game. But that's just a testament to how smart he is. He's constantly able to beat opponents to the right spots by anticipating those spots early, by anticipating space, anticipating these little pockets from which he can work. And on top of that, I love his shot from medium range. A lot of his goals have been coming through like tap-ins and cross-crease passes and that kind of stuff because he's getting to those areas. But on top of it, his mid to long range scoring has really improved over the year. And I've seen him make some elite level passes too. So he's a really smart player with a great shot, flashes of elite playmaking, but really bad skating. Every time I think of him, every time I watch him, I can't help but be reminded of draft year Nick Suzuki. Suzuki had the same issues. He turned out pretty good, right? Moving on to number 21 in my rankings, going to be Andrew Basha, a left winger out of the Medicine Hat Tigers in the WHL. For me, Andrew Basha is kind of like a bigger, better version of Luke Misa. He's just as fast and he's just as capable of making plays at that top speed. But for me, he's got better physical tools, is able to drive the net directly while protecting the puck, and his cycle game is a bit more polished than Luke Misa's. Misa's better defensively, but Andrew Basha isn't bad at it either, and I have a hard time not seeing him become a really, really solid middle six winger. And now we reach the top 20, and we're going to start this off with a defenseman, a left-handed defenseman called Alphonse Frey out of the Växjö Lakers in the junior level in Sweden. His mobility is absurd, but he's not one of those puck-moving defensemen who can only use it offensively. He loves to close gaps in transition to prevent scoring chances early. He's a great net front battler too. But on top of that, his defensive game is also really good. He's got great vision. He's got really good hands. He's got a fantastic shot. I could really see see him becoming a second pair defenseman. There isn't really anything in his game that I can point to and say that's a real weakness. I would just say just kind of elevating everything with better habits, better decisions, would really make him a solid NHLer. At 19th overall, we've got a player who I have a whole video on my channel. It's Jesse Pulkkinen. To sum him up, he's an overager, so he's already 19 years old. He's a December 04 birthday. He's 6'6", 216 pounds. He skates really well. He's amazing defensively. He's offensively skilled. He has amazing hands, a heavy shot. But on top of all that, he is just so poised with the puck. I think he needs to rein in the chaos a bit because he's just pure chaos on the ice. But overall, the upside is insane if you're able to kind of rein him in, teach him some better habits, make him a bit more composed, because there are so many areas of the game that he can dominate. For me, he's this draft's unicorn. And if you want a better kind of breakdown of his game, a more in-depth breakdown of his game, check out the video. It's about a 7-minute video, and it really breaks down his game fairly well. At 18th overall, we have Trevor Conley, a left winger out of the Tri-City Storm in the USHL. Now, with Trevor Conley, what really stands out immediately is that he has fantastic puck skills. The hands are ridiculous. The shot is great. The playmaking is amazing. And he's also gotten a lot more engaged defensively over the last month or two, I would say. You see him, get back check hard, make defensive plays, get in the right spots. But the issues with Conley, there's two sections to it. There are the on-ice concerns and the off-ice concerns. On the ice, sometimes he's playing pond hockey. He's trying to deke through everyone and make a play, all that stuff. But off the ice also, there are huge red flags at almost every level that he's played. And he's probably on some teams' do not draft lists because of that. But for me, it really all depends on how much he's grown. I believe that anyone can kind of learn and grow and redeem themselves, but he needs to show that he's putting in actual meaningful work, because otherwise it's just damage control. Moving on to number 17, we have Carter Yakimchuk, a right-handed defenseman of the Calgary Hitmen in the WHL. And he's shown up as high as 10th overall on some lists so far. And to be honest, I used to hate watching him, but he's really grown on me over the last stretch of games. He's an extremely daring defenseman. He's going to try to stick handle through the entire team to score. He spams shots from the blue line, and I would watch him at the start of the year and want to tear my hair out. But recently, he's been spotting those passing lanes that he used to pass up in favor of shots through 4 pairs of legs. He's been, showing more restraint defensively too. He's waiting for the right moment to pounce on a puck carrier instead of just kind of yeeting himself at him as soon as he can. And if he can keep that going, I can see the top pair potential. He's a great skater. He's got a long reach. He's a natural athlete. But for me, the decision-making really has to improve. And finally, at 16th overall, to close off this part 1 of my top 32 rankings, we have Nikita Artemonov, a right winger out of Torpedo in the KHL. Now, I can't show KHL tape on YouTube, or this video goes bye-bye and I get striked. So I'm going to try to sum up his game using his tape from either last year or, just some overall tape that I can find that doesn't have the KHL in it. He's really smart. He always supports plays in really translatable ways. I love the way that he always keeps a distance between him and his teammate when his teammate's carrying the puck, but he's always right nearby, ready to help him out with an outlet for a pass. He brings a lot of energy on the forecheck too. He just hunts down puck carriers relentlessly. And he's just a player who loves to speed up the game. Some players just have that quality where they make everyone play faster when they're on the ice. The issue is exactly that with me with Nikita Artemonov. He's kind of pedal to the metal the entire time. He doesn't pace himself in transition or in the defensive zone as much as I'd like him to. And he doesn't always find those offensive zone pockets to shoot from, but I think overall he has a high floor, and second line upside is kind of a playmaker and forechecker combination. But that's it for part 1 of my top 32 rankings. Make sure to like and subscribe if you like the content, and again, if your team sucks, I'm the best channel to help you out with this. Also, make sure to leave a comment down below. Let me know if you agree, if you disagree with my rankings, players you think should be higher or lower, players you think I omitted that I shouldn't have. Let me know. And also my top 64 is out on Twitter right now. If you want to check it out at HattieK_scouting on Twitter. You can see my entire top 64 with a bunch of honorable mentions as well. So make sure to check that out. And again, top 15 coming soon. So keep an eye out for that. Hattie out.